Hello everybody and welcome to a what should be a fun little DC-6 flight. We're here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're over here at the FBO, and we're going to take this aircraft for a spin down to El Paso. It's been a long time since I've really flown this aircraft. It's a really cool simulation by PMDG for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'm diving back into it because Slant Alpha, at least on his channel, it's being hosted, I think. But anyway, is helping put together, I think, at least a Across the Gulf Vintage Airliner Edition, or Vintage Edition, on this Saturday. Today's the last day of January the 31st. I just got out of jury duty and I'm done, so yay. Anyway, so it's caused me to, I thought it'd be really cool to participate in that. It's going to be going from, I think, Santiago in Cuba, across the Gulf up to somewhere in like Louisiana or something like that. I can't remember the name of the airport now, but it's going to be like a 4-hour trip in something that only goes 250 knots like this DC-6 does. I wanted to be able to make sure I could fly it still, because it's been a long time since I messed with a prop liner, and especially one as finicky and as the DC-6. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. This is just me flying the aircraft. This is not a tutorial. I know I've got the Mad Dog Masterclass, and so I don't want this to be confused with that. I am going to walk you through what I'm doing, and hopefully what I'm doing is correct. I have, full disclosure, this is not my first flight in this aircraft since, months ago. I've actually been looking at this aircraft over the last few days and done a number of flights. In fact, I did this exact same flight and recorded it yesterday, and then realized I left the tablet up for like the entire second half of the video, including the landing. And so the videos, but I really wanted to put this up because I thought it'd be fun. So I'm going to do the whole flight again. So you're getting round two. Nothing really happened on that flight that was of note, except that we did have an engine go into auto feather, I think. I'm still not entirely sure what happened on the approach. And I thought I was able to rescue it a little bit, but it was always maintaining a different RPM, and we were constantly getting pulled to one side. So I'm fairly certain it was feathered and not really producing any lift or any thrust for us. Did manage to land without incident on the runway, but in the cause afterwards, I was able to figure out how to reset it, and so that'll help if it ever happens again. I now know something of how to deal with that. So that was the only thing of note that really happened on that flight, which would have been cool to get on camera. But again, the tablet was in the way, so that wasn't going to happen. So again, I will go through everything that I'm doing and how I fly the aircraft. Again, I'm not as polished as I would like to be, but that's okay. That's not the purpose of this video. So you can use this as a quasi-tutorial, because I seem to be able to fly it successfully. So you can take it for what it's worth, but just know I'm not following every procedure. I'm not doing every test. There's things I'm missing. There's probably things I'm doing wrong, because at this point I'm more concerned with making sure I can get it up in the air, fly it successfully, and land it. The other thing that I'm doing that I know that those of you familiar with my channel will know is kind of like, he's doing what? Is I have turned on the GPS. And I'm not doing that because I'm lazy or because I'm tired of doing VORs. I love doing VORs. I think it's so much fun. However, for this flight across the Gulf, we are supposed to be RNAV capable. And so we have to use the GPS for flight. And that has forced me to learn the GNS 430 in a way I never did before. In fact, I've always just kind of ignored the GNS 430. I've always found it kind of hard to use because I didn't understand it. And this forced me to dive into it and really understand it. I found a really cool video from Garmin walking through, probably from like the late 90s, but or maybe early 2000s. The video quality, sometimes it's hard to tell the video quality. It's like these companies are stuck like 10 years behind what is current, so it's hard to tell. But anyway, it helped me learn and really understand what the thing is doing and how it's doing it, and what pages go where, and how to navigate things. So I'm actually really kind of glad. So it's an option now. But anyway, so we will be using the GPS. I'll show you kind of how I'm operating that too. So if you're struggling with understanding how to use the GNS 430, then maybe this will help you too. Again, not a tutorial, but take it for what it's worth. So anyway, this plane is absolutely modeled beautifully. We're gonna go ahead and get up on deck here, and I'm gonna try and do some magic with the visuals. There we go. If I pop in here, and then we turn the corner, and then if I hit this key, boom, ha! We're in the cockpit. Magic has happened. So here's the cockpit of the DC-6. It is a nightmare. And I say that in love. I love this airplane, but it is round dials everywhere, which I think is fantastic and fascinating. Some people just absolutely go, oh heck no. It's really not as bad as it looks on first glance. It's made worse by some gauges being slightly discolored, even though they're the same kind of gauge or have a different style, and that's apparently totally what would happen in these aircraft. They would get kind of swap out parts over time, and so you'd kind of have this Frankenstein-y hodgepodge for these aircraft, and it really gave it an interesting personality. So again, we will have a magenta line of sorts, but this isn't one of those like just take it off, hit autopilot, and let it do its thing. You are constantly watching this thing and monitoring this thing, and that's part of what makes this such a fun aircraft to fly. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the best seat in the house, as 77 Spy says, into the pilot seat. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open these windows up. You do hear like airplanes buzzing me around. I believe that's the airport ambience provided by FS Realistic, which is kind of cool. It makes it sound like there's some life going on at the airport. I don't know why there's a prop plane constantly buzzing me, but it is what it is. So we're going to do that first, and then the tablet here is how we're going to load up the aircraft and do some setup stuff. You can use it down here. You can also move it up here like this. I actually like to leave it here, and I have a view set up for me to just kind of go down to it. So sometimes you'll see me do either one, but if I have to get close up and personal, I'm going to do it this way. So we have wheel chocks set. We have the ground power connected, the pitot covers, the engine oil pans, the mechanic stands. All those are pulled away. All of the doors are open at the moment. We're in cold and dark situation. I have persistence turned on, and I have all the failures turned on. So if we go over here to options, you'll see realistic engine damage is on, realistic start, realistic carb icing, CB failure, AP disconnect, all that's on. Obviously we have the Asobo GNS 430, much to my chagrin, but we have to deal with it, so we're going to deal with it. I need to get used to it. But if we come over here to the maintenance manager, we'll see that all of our engines, they do have some time on them. We've got about 3.25 hours or so on each engine, and it's still in the green. I've treated it well, apparently. Propeller has some time on it. I did just top off the oil on all the engines. They were down to about 31 point something each, and so I topped them all up. So we had our mechanic go ahead and put all the engine oil back up to full. Haven't actually had to use the water, alcohol, the auxiliary oil, or the anti-ice fluid yet, so those have all stayed where they are. Total airframe time is about 8.95, and this is higher because at one point, after one of my flights, I did damage the engines, and so I had to reset those. But since then, I put another 3 hours on it without doing any damage. So there you go. in the full transparency. This is the engine stress visualizer. This isn't something the actual aircraft would have had, but it's something we can have to kind of see, and it's really great for when you're learning the aircraft, translating what you're seeing on the gauges and seeing how it translates over here. So sometimes I'll reference this and just make sure that what I'm seeing is actually still green. Yeah, so you can find out if you got too much overboost, a mixture too lean, excessive high RPM, cylinder head temperature is going too crazy, carburetor temperature is going too crazy, oil temp and oil pressure being a problem. All right, all those things will kill you. The one thing we're not going to use today is this guy, the AFE, the Artificial Flight Engineer. He is not allowed on my plane. I like to fly this thing myself. It is much more fun. I don't need this guy. And so, yeah, he is not making an appearance today. So he is banished from the airplane. All right, so here's how we're going to load the aircraft. So first of all, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at my flight plan, and I'll show you this real quick. This is through Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief, obviously, but the Sim Toolkit Pro is how we're viewing it. We're going to be at flight level 150 right there. Estimated time and route's about 1 hour, 9 minutes. And this is our route. Albuquerque, the Largo 3, Albuquerque VOR, O&M, which is Sicaro, I believe. One of my favorite VORs in the world, Truth or Consequences VOR, which is named after a real town in New Mexico, which is named after a game show. You can't write this stuff, guys. Victor 611 to Molly, Victor 94 to Newmark, and then Direct Piers. And actually, this is going to change a little bit, I think, because after I plan this, it looks like right now they're using runways 22 and 26 left. Yesterday it was 26 left, but the winds currently, and if it stays this way, the winds are blowing at 11 right down 220. So it makes sense to actually use 22. And if that's the case, then we actually don't need to go all the way to Piers. We'll cut it short, and I'll show you that en route with the GNS. Okay, we got 68 passengers. We got 2380 on the cargo, and we got 6,808 on the block fuel. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to get all that set. So to do the fuel, just hover your mouse over this guy, and you can use your scroll wheel and scroll on down. And you can actually see the airplane is kind of moving a little bit as I'm taking fuel off the bird. It's reacting to the weight coming off. So it's 6808. So 68. And then if I left click with my mouse, I can actually refine that in tens. So 6806. I don't think we're going to be missing that extra 2 pounds of fuel. If it comes down to 2 pounds, we did some really bad fuel planning. So you'll notice we don't have anything in the alternate tanks. It's only in the main tanks today, so we don't have to worry about, transferring tanks. We're not going that far, so we don't have to worry about that. So just in the main tanks. All right, 68 is the max this aircraft can hold, so we're just going to spin that up till it says 68. And then for the cargo, we have 2380. Again, we'll get this close, 23, and then we can click, and it'll go by tens, 2380 on the nose, no pun intended. All right, so that gives us, for weights, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it better, a gross weight of 83,024. Now, one of the things that you need to take note of in the DC-6 is a magic number. Magic number is really easy to remember because it's 876. 5309, no, 876, and it's 87,600 pounds. But just remember, count down, 876. 876. Gross weight below that amount, you are doing a dry takeoff, meaning you're not going to inject alcohol water mixture into the cylinders to get extra compression and cooling and higher temperatures and power and engines not eating the spells and whatever. But above that number, you are doing a wet takeoff because 876 is the max takeoff weight for a dry takeoff. Not about the runway condition. This is all about whether or not you're injecting water into the cylinders, which seems counterproductive. You'd think throwing water on a fire puts it out. But actually what's happening is you're mixing it in there, and by putting extra stuff in there that's not compressible and not flammable, it's taking up cylinder space. So you actually have increased the compression in the cylinder. It's like you've reduced the size of the cylinder while still keeping the same size piston. It's kind of like magic. It also has an effect of adding additional cooling. So while you're increasing the compression and therefore increasing the heat and the power, you're helping take some of that heat away so the engine can withstand that extra pressure. So it's a kind of cool little thing they do. It's kind of a hack. Anyway, but we're below that. We're going to be dry. So there you go. And I say this is not a tutorial, and here I go explaining everything that I'm doing. But you know what? I enjoy it. I think you guys appreciate it too. So I'm going to keep doing it. All right. After that, we're going to go ahead and get some power on the aircraft and then start setting things up. So we do have the ground battery connected down there, the ground power. And so we're going to set ground power right there. That light comes on. Everything's still off, though, because this is like the main power switch. This is just telling us, do we want ground power? Do we want to use the plane battery? Obviously, we want to use the ground power as long as it's connected, so we save the plane battery. Click that on. You see the gauges come to life. And there's some things we want to check and make sure of. So first of all, we want to make sure we have fuel quantities in our main tanks. Our main tanks are down here. These are the alternate tanks. So you can see we've got just under 17, around 17, around 17, just under 17 across all the tanks. And I happen to see that that's about what it was supposed to be in the tanks when we were looking at the tablet. So that is showing good. Water tanks are full. Again, this is that water alcohol mixture for doing the wet takeoff. Hydraulic reservoir is showing full, so that is also a good thing. Let's see here. This is oil, and it's showing empty, and I don't know why those show empty. The auxiliary oil shows full. I know they're not empty, so I'm not really sure. In fact, I wonder, actually, hang on. Is there another instrument switch? They may come on when I turn the inverters on. Let's try that. So let's get the inverters. So remember, this is a battery. It's DC power. Obviously, if you need AC power for anything, you have to either run it off a generator that can supply alternating current, or send it through an inverter and create your own sine wave. So inverter number 1, maybe. Inverter number 2. And, oh, engine instruments. I bet this is going to do it. Yep, bingo, there's the oil. So, yeah, so there's the engine instruments switch. See, I'm learning things too. And so our oil is full and all the things. So next time, we'll do those switches and that switch, and then check your gauges. What a concept. All right. While we're over here, we're going to check our circuit breakers for our fuel pumps, boost pumps. We only really care about the mains because that's where we have fuel. The alternate boost pumps are not an alternate pump. They're the boost pumps in the alternate tanks. So there you go. Water injection pumps are off. Oil dilution pumps are off. So that's fine. Again, we're not going to use the water, so that's okay. We're going to put the position lights on steady. We don't need the strobing effect yet. We're not on the runway. We'll wait on the beacon. No smoking and seatbelt signs will turn on now. And I don't really need panel lighting at this point for anything, so I'm not going to worry about that. Coming over here to this side is kind of, think of this as like the anti-ice area. I will turn on the cabin heater. I'm not going to worry about the airfoil heater because we're not in a position where we really need it yet. If we fly through a cloud, we might, and then we'll see stuff on these gauges come up. But in the meantime, we can leave those alone. What we can do is check on our fire detection stuff. These are the various bells. This is going to be loud, so warning. We got the light, we got the bell, and it's out. So fire warning stuff is good. So there you go. I'm going to leave all this rest of the stuff off. We don't really need it for this, for the sake of this stuff. Landing lights will stay off. We will open the cowl flaps all the way for the engine start. And coming over here, this is pressurization, climate control, that kind of fun. So to set the altitude we're going to be flying to, which is 15,000 feet in this case, we're going to move this little indicator until the flight is on the altitude and maybe just a little bit above our altitude. And the cabin will show what it should pressurize the cabin to once we get up to that altitude. So there you go. Nothing else really to do here. I'm kind of surprised that we have this and you can't change this from 2992, but apparently you can't. I thought you could. Maybe that was in the P3D version. I don't know. If you need to go into manual mode, that's right here. And this is all of your electrical stuff. You can check your generators, which we're not running generators right now because the engines are off. You can also see the manifold pressure, so on and so forth. By the way, your hydraulic pressure is down here, and we have some emergency air brake stuff right here. So just FYI where the stuff is, because it can be kind of confusing. There's a lot of stuff in this cockpit. All right, let's turn on our various radios and GPS. We need to say OK to that. It's going to start searching for these satellites. And while it's doing that, we're going to go on to other things. If I can hit the right button, that would help. Down here we turn on our DME and we can turn on our transponder. We're not on the network today. I'm going to do this offline, but I'm out of habit. We're going to set 2000 as if we're on the network but didn't have air traffic control, since the second half of that statement is correct. There's our clock. We have our airspeed, our artificial horizon, our altimeter, our bank indicator, our basically our HSI right there. The vertical speed indicator, our RMI, our radiomagnetic indicator, and then VOR number 2 is this guy over here. And then we have our inductor compass right here, as well as another RMI over here, apparently. Oh, no, okay, I'm sorry. So these are both RMIs, but this one is for VORs and this one is ADF. So a lot of times you have one RMI and you have little toggles to flip between them on the DC-6. They didn't believe in toggles, so we have VOR1 and VOR2 and ADF1 and ADF2. By the way, if you never admittedly, I learned this not that long ago, which saddens me. You know how you can always tell which needle is which? The needle with one line is number 1. The needle with 2 lines is number 2. It's kind of sad that it took me this long to realize that was the case. And I was like, which one's which? Yeah, so we're always learning. We're always learning. You may have just had that light bulb go off for you too, and if so, welcome to the club. Alright, by now the GPS should be spooled up, and it is. So we can go ahead and put in our flight plan here. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to do my comm radios. Again, I'm not in the network, but I'm going to set it up as if I was, because it's going to have to get into. So for me, I would put this on 122.8, switch that over, and then I would go ahead and put, since I don't have anything else to do, I would go ahead and put this as guard on the standby. And on comm 2, we would set it to guard, which is 1215. So if anyone was meowing on frequency, we'd be able to hear it. Again, we're not on the network today, so there will be no meowing, but it's there just in case. Alright. And then we'll set up our VOR stuff in, well, I'll do it now. Why not? Why not? Let me go out of here. In fact, this is a good time to show you the route. What a thought. Alright. And I'm sniffling a little bit. Apparently, I have a cold again. I've got a throat thing going on, and it's not as bad as the one I had in the end of December, but right around going to jury duty, it hit me, and I'm like, had trouble sleeping last night as a result, and pain in the butt. So if you hear me sniffling like that, it's just a result of that. I'm not dying, don't worry. Alright, so we are taking off once again off of runway 8 like we did yesterday. I say we, it was me, and I recorded it, but you haven't seen it. We're going to take off runway 8, and we're going to spin around this way because we're going to be going south. We could really spin around either way, but there seems a little point into going here and trying to fly back to Albuquerque and then spin around. Might as well just make it smooth. So that's what I'm going to do. In the interest of smoothness, we're going to go to the left. And so Albuquerque is our first VOR, 113.2, so we'll put that one in there. The next VOR is Socorro, which is 116.8. The rest of the route is thus, and coming down here into El Paso. And there is the airport. Be aware, in El Paso, there are 2 airports that look have very similar kind of runway layouts. One is an Air Force base or a military base of some kind, and the other one is El Paso. El Paso is the more southerly one. Don't go too far south, lest you end up in Mexico. Although, right now, politically speaking, it's very easy to get back into America. So, never fear. Anyway, sorry, don't mean to bring politics into this, but sometimes I just can't help it. Okay, so 113.2 and then Socorro VOR. So 113.2, we're going to set that first. Whoops. Make sure you push this to go back down to there. 113.2 is Albuquerque. And Socorro, what was it, 116 something? 116.8. So we'll set that 116.8. There we go. And then, like a good pilot, we're going to queue up 116. Actually, 116.8 over here. Voila. And we can put the third VOR, which I think is Truth or Consequences. Yes, 112.7. And so you always want to tune these, or there will be consequences, and that is the truth. 112.7. There we go. Okay, so we essentially have 3 VORs. In fact, all the VORs except for the last one are now tuned in some place. We have Albuquerque, we have Socorro, actually both in the standby and the number 1 of the number 2, which that sounds funny. And the standby, and then Truth or Consequences is in the standby of number 2. So it's really easy to switch these and pick up those VORs very quickly if you need to. And sometimes when you're flying, you don't want to be retuning stuff if you're in a very kind of tense moment or something. All right, how do we program the GNS 430? Very, very easily. So we're going to go and hit flight plan, and our flight plan is blank. And that's sad, but we're going to fix that. If you push this, it will activate the cursor, push for cursor, you see that, on there, and it'll start to blinking. And then you can move that up and down with the big toggle. There's nothing to move to, so it's not moving at the moment because there's no data in there yet. So it's not going to let you put stuff down here. But you might be asking, well, how do I put in my starting point? Well, just put your starting airport as your first waypoint. It'll jump up there for you. So we do that. We then turn the inner knob, because that's how you would be changing the letters here in the real thing. However, in the sim we have a nice little hack. If we push this little keyboard icon, now I can type directly KABQ. Makes my life easy. Comes up, tells us what it is, so we know it's the right one. Hit enter, and it put it there, and it also put it up there. Now, as we add to the flight plan, it's going to put whatever the last waypoint in is into our destination. So don't worry about that until we get to the end. So here's how we're going to do that. So our first, our departure is the Largo 3. Now the Largo 3, and in fact I'll show it to you because a picture is worth 1,000 words. So they say. So here's the Largo 3. You notice our first transition point from the Largo 3 is Albuquerque. Right there. All of these other things in the Largo 3 we're not going to. We're doing Albuquerque and we're going south. So while we are doing the Largo 3, are we really doing the Largo 3? I mean, yes, but kind of. So it's basically going to be vectors to Albuquerque. And so I'm not going to worry about setting up the departure procedure in the GNS. If you needed to do that, you would go to procedure down here and select departure procedure. I'm not going to worry about it because we're not flying any kind of sophisticated departure that we need to worry about. So we're just going to bypass. And I realized I had the tablet in the way. Procedure right there. That's where you would go to find it. Select approach, select arrival, select departure. Wonderful. All right, we're going to clear. We're going to flight plan. We're back. Push cursor. Done. All back to where we started. Wonderful. Okay. So the next point is Albuquerque, ABQ. So we will put that one in there, which feels redundant, but it's not the same as the airfield because it's not on the airfield. It tells you the name of it and tells you it's in Southwest USA, so you can verify it's the right one. All right, Albuquerque. So now it thinks we're going from Albuquerque to Albuquerque VOR, and that's fine. The next waypoint is ONM, which is the Socorro VOR. So ONM, Socorro, Southwest USA, enter. There we go. Next point is Truth or Consequences, TCS. Truth or Consequences, Southwest USA, enter. And you can't see it blinking down here, it's off screen, but as long as you don't move anything, it is going to the next spot. So you can just rotate this again, you don't have to scroll down and find it. You are at the bottom, don't worry. The next one is Victor 611, and I don't think we can put in airways. I'm going to try it, but I don't think we can. 611, yeah, no, it's freaking out. Okay, so no. So in order to do this, we have to put in all the points along the airway, because the airway may not be a direct shot. Sometimes it bends and bows and what have you. So we're going to put in all of them. So the next one is Ducas, D-U-C-A-S. I gotta click on this again. D-U-C-A-S. There we go. Ducas, Southwest USA. Enter. And then we are going to Cagev, C-A-G-E-V. C-A-G-E-V. Again, Southwest USA. Excellent. To move this and click over here and ba-boom. And the next one is Fryan, or Frian, F-R-I-A-N, F-R-I-A-N. Again, Southwest US. That's good. Enter. And then we're going to put in Molly, M-O-L-L-Y. That is the end of Victor 611. Molly. Southwest USA. Beautiful. All right. Now, we technically now have another airway that we're doing to Newmark. Or Newman. I keep calling it Newmark. It's Newman. What an idiot am I? Okay. Like the salad dressing guy. Okay. So, but again, we can't enter. We have to enter the waypoints. So I'm just looking at the chart here and looking at what they are. And so the first one is Wicker, W-I-K-K-R, Southwest USA, and then we have Watex, W-A-T-E-X. W-A-T-E-X, Watex, South Central USA now. And our last waypoint is going to be Newman, which is EWM. And actually, I'm going to put in Piers too, but I think we're going to skip it. EWM, because, yeah, Newman. Piers is actually our last waypoint as filed, but I don't think we're going to go there. But I'm going to put it in there anyway, so it's there. P-I-E-R-S, and enter. And then we'll put in our finally the airport we're going to. So that is going to be KELP. And that's important because now if I go to procedure and say arrival or approach, it's going to look at El Paso information for that. If I didn't put that in there, it wouldn't see another airport. It would give me arrivals and approaches for Albuquerque, and that's not what anybody wants. So, okay. One thing to note here, I discovered this very horrifyingly when I was flying this yesterday, is you can obviously add additional things in here on the fly, but just know it's going to add them above the point you're selected in. So, if I'm flying from Dukas to KG, and I want to add a route after KG, I better select Freehan, so it puts it up here. Because what happened is I put it, it wasn't at this point, but I put it here, and it added it here between Dukas and whatever, and my plane immediately started flying somewhere else, because I was on GPS hold. And there is no, like, enter, see where it puts it, and then execute on this box. When you hit enter, you're done. So, it's a little different than an FMS, so just be aware of that. It's a pro tip. Alright. Another cool pro tip, if you hold clear, it will take you back to the nav page. And then you can use this to scroll through the pages. The nav chapter. Then you can scroll through all the pages of that chapter, which is your primary spot. Flight plan, obviously, you only have the one page. Procedures, you only have the one page. But if you just hold clear, if you're ever not sure how to get back, just hold clear, and it'll take you back to the nav chapter, and then you can just move this to go there. I also have the box. You'll notice I'm in track up, not in north up, because since I'm using this kind of like on the fly, I feel like it makes more sense to kind of think of this as looking at an a nav display, an ND display on a jet, as opposed to in plan mode, which would be where it would be north up. So before you come at me for using track up versus north up or vice versa, that's why I'm doing it. You can change it in the settings menu and so on. Okay, so we're all set. We can zoom out of this and actually see it's going to Albuquerque first, and then going down to Socorro. There is our route. Pink is the active leg right there. So I'm going to leave it just like that for the moment. Zoomed in a little bit, and that's all good to go. Perfect. Okay, all that's out of the way. At this point, we would assume the passengers who had a chance to board get seated and get all the stuff done. So we're going to button her up and prepare for engine start. So we're going to go back to the ramp manager. We're going to remove the cabin stairs and the front cabin stairs. Also going to close the cargo holds. We can do the main cabin exit and the front cabin exit. And we're all buttoned up. We're also going to move the wheel chocks. I do see that my parking brake is set. So with the parking brake set, we're going to move the wheel chocks. Once you start engines, it'll remove them anyway. So might as well just do it for them. So wheel chocks are removed. We'll leave the windows open because it helps to hear the engine starts, and then we'll close them up. So it'll get a little noisy, and then it'll get less noisy, but it's still noisy because it's a noisy bird. Alright, so what we need to do for the engine start is, first of all, we need to open the fuel valves here to the main tanks. So main tanks are all selected across the way here. I am going to remove the gust lock and make sure my engine controls are all moving, and they are, so that's fantastic. I am going to crack them ever so slightly, like thusly, and then we'll refine them as we slowly start the engines. So that's good. We're going to come up top here, and we're going to turn the beacon on. We're going to turn the engine start selector to number 3. This starts 3, 4, 2, and then 1. I believe because 2 and 3 run the hydraulic pumps, so you want to get some hydraulic pressure in there as soon as possible. I'm going to turn all the generator control switches on. We're going to turn all the mags on. And we're going to put the engine 3 main fuel pump, booster pump to low. All right, at this point, the aircraft, and we already did the cowl flaps. You want the cowl flaps at the fully open position. At this point, the aircraft is ready to go. Now, if you watch the tutorial from Randazzo, and if you watch what the AFE does, he will come down and he will move, go to the right view, the mixture switch up to full rich now. However, there is, I cannot remember where I've seen this, but I watched Slant Alpha do the exact same thing. So we've gotten multiple, I've seen multiple people do it this way, not just me. And I remember reading it somewhere or seeing it somewhere that they did not bring the mixture up until the engine caught. Like you hear it start to sputter. And I think the reasoning for that is there is a danger if it doesn't start, you can easily flood and hydrolock the engine if you don't close this back off quickly enough. So I think that's the reason why. In fact, I even saw a real DC-6 video the other day where they did exactly this way. The guy did not move this until the engine actually caught, and he actually waited a few moments, kind of listened to it sputter, and then brought it in. So that's how I do it. The best way to do it is if you have quick views to see that, and I've got 2 and 6 set, so I can go between 2 and 6 and quickly get down there and do that. If you can't do that, fine, turn it on and leave it on, and you'll probably be fine. But I've not had any issues with that. The reason that works, again, assuming you got the pump on, is when you hit prime, that is actually injecting fuel through the primer into the engine, circumventing that mixture switch. So you can literally start the engine with that, but as soon as that switch cuts out, the engine's going to die if you don't have that mixture turned on. So, and again, if you don't have the boost pump on, you'll get nothing because there'll be nothing there to prime it with. The boost is like a shower of sparks. So it's like you've got the normal magneto stuff in there, and it's just like throwing all kinds of sparks in there to make sure it lights off. So the way we do this, the guy's going to count blades, 3, 6, 9. At 9, we hit the boost, and at 12, we hit the prime, move down. As soon as we hear that thing catch, we bring up the mixture to full rich, let the engine stabilize, try and keep it at about 1,000, let it start warming up. Okay, that's the plan. Here we go.
3, 6, 9,
Boost.
12.
Prime. There we go. Hear it? See? You can start it just fine. And, oh, I forgot I was inside the airplane there. But I was trying for dramatic effects, but no. So there she blows. Engine number 3 is alight. And if we go down, if we look at our gauges here, what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to get that RPM up to around 1,000. So I'm going to bring up the throttle a little bit. Oop, not that much. Careful. Just need it a little bit, just a touch, just a whisper. And it's actually going to increase as it warms up too, because the oil will become more viscous as it gets warm, and the engine will be able to run a little bit more freely with that thinner oil. So there we go, right around 1,000 RPM. That's looking healthy. I'm going to bump these other engines up to that level. Looking at my throttle quadrant here. Perfect. All right, boost pump can now go off. We can switch this to engine 4 and make sure we put the engine 4 pump on, and we'll repeat the process.
3, 6, 9, 12.
There it goes. Beautiful. 2 good engine starts. Unfortunately, something Asobo never gave PMDG was some smoke effects. It's really cool to see some smoke coming out of these engines when they first start, because that's how it would happen in real life. Let's see, what are we doing here? I feel like I just have to bump them and then, like, wakes it up. It needs a little bit more. Come back slightly. A little bit of a oomph. It's in the ballpark. Alright. Boost pump can go off. We're going to go to engine number 2. And boost pump for engine number 2. And starting 2.
3, 9, 12,
There we go. Good engine start on number 2. Just kind of massage the throttle a little bit, try and get it up to 1,000 RPM. You don't want to go any much higher than 1,000 until the engine warms up. The oil gets to above at least about 40 degrees C. So that's why we're kind of being careful. Keep an eye on that. That looks good. And let's start our last engine. Engine number 1, boost pump off, engine 1 boost pump on, and here we go.
3, 6, 9, 12,
There we go. Good light off of number 1. RPM is stabilizing. What you don't want to do in this aircraft, because it'll trick you, it'll deceive you, and that is look at the manifold pressure at engine start, because the manifold pressure, if the engine start fails, the manifold pressure will default to around 30 inches, and it will look like, oh look, the engine gauge is up high. Well, that's because outside air pressure is about 30 inches. 29.92 is standard, and so on and so forth. So, I got a little bit too far. The reason the manifold pressure drops is because now the cylinders are pulling air in, and it's creating a vacuum in the, or at least comparatively so, to the outside air. And therefore, we're actually getting a bit of a vacuum in that scenario. Alright, so we've got engine 3, which we started first, just crossed the 40 line. Engine 4 is coming up to it. We still got a little ways to go on engine numbers 1 and 2, as they just started. Engines are in full rich, and we're going to lock them in so I don't accidentally hit them, because that would be bad. So they're locked in. While we're waiting for that to run up to temp, we'll go ahead and set our flaps. Flap indicators right here. Flaps 20 is what's used for takeoff. So we're just moving the flap handle down here. That's 15. That should be 20 right there. And that is this big lever right here. Big red lever is the landing gear. So that is all set. That looks good. We can turn off the boost pump on number 1. We'll set the breaker, the engine selector to 0. And now we just gotta let the engines run up to temp before we do much. So we'll go ahead and close the window. Since we're gonna be doing some engine run-up stuff and getting noisy. We can also remove the plane, we'll go with this plane battery and remove the ground power. So now we are free of all things. You can see here the oil temperature is moderate stress range, because it's just, it is. It's low, but it's not, whatever. It's working itself out. So when you're first starting these things, it's a little weird. This one thinks it's in cold and icing range, so it's warming up. It's going to get there normal. Don't let that frighten you. There'll be times when it's in a range that seems bad. Let's go ahead and bring the engine 3 and 4 back a little bit. Right back to about 1,000. Bring engine 1 and 2 back a little bit as well. See, they're slowly inching up there as the oil temp increases. Looks like engine 2 is just breaching 40. As soon as engine 1 breaches, we can start doing our run-up test. Actually, while we're waiting here, the weather in ABQ, we got wind at 100 at 6 knots, 10 mile visibility, few clouds at 6,000, scattered at 10,000. Temperature 9, dew point 2, altimeter 3012. So let's set our altimeter. 3012, right about there. We gotta do the other side as well. 3012. Just kind of watch where it's bouncing back and forth. A little bit of shake, shake, shake. Good old engine vibrations. Good, 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 good vibrations. Alright, looks like one is just above the 40 line now. So let's go ahead and start doing our tests. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check our mags. So to do this, we're going to check 2 at a time. And the reason we're going to check the odd numbers and the even numbers, because they're stacked on top of each other, it's hard to see sometimes the deflections. And you want to be able to see those deflections. So first of all, we're going to run this up to about 1600 RPM. So it's out of the unhappy shake, shake, shake range. It's right there in 1400 or so. It likes to shake around a whole lot. So I think it's going to be right around 15 or so on the manifold. Oh, maybe a little higher than that. Come on, a little bit higher than 15, please. Thank you. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to go and set 1 and 3 to left only and take a look. And we should see a little bit of a deflection. Not a huge deflection, just a little bit. We got a little bit more on 1 than we do on 3, but that's okay. It's still within range. So that's not bad. Let's put them back, make sure they reset. Again, you're going to see that because you're not getting as healthy of a burn. And actually, we can see now why we actually got what seemed like more deflection on 1 than we got on 3, because 3 was actually leading for a little bit. So you want to try and fix that. Oops, we're going the wrong way. You want to try and get them back roughly in sync. That looks pretty good right there. And it looks like 2 is behind the curve ever so slightly. I think. Back into sync a little bit. There we go. The more they can be in sync, the better the better that reading will be. All right, now we'll do the right on both 1 and 3, and again we see them taper off a little bit. That's good, and back to both. Make sure they come back to their full power. And they do. Alright, now we're going to do 2 and 4. Left mag first. That looks good. Yeah, 2 and 4. And they've gone back and... I'm moving out of the way. Nope, come back here. This can be finicky sometimes. I'm going to bump 3 and 4 a little bit because they're getting a little closer to that 1500 line. I don't want them to do that. There we go. Alright, and now 2 and 4 on the right mag. And that looks good. Checking to see if any one of these mags is bad. If they were, you'd see a lot of sputtering or just like complete cut out of the engine, and that tells us both our mags are good in all the engines. So that's a good test. Next thing we're going to do is we want to make sure the auto feather is working, and so to do that we're going to increase this to well, actually before we do that, let's do the prop check. So we're going to move the prop first of all, and we verify all those blue lights went out when we started moving the prop handle, and then we're going to bring that back until we start to see a decrease in RPM. We want to see it across all 4 engines, and we do. Beautiful. So I'm going to bring that right back up. Excellent. We're now going to bring this into manual. And I'm going to increase the speed here. Actually, we'll leave it in auto for a moment. I'm going to increase the speed to about 2,000 RPM. little hotter. So there we go. And now we're going to bring this controller into manual, and we're going to bring all of the props into full back. And it's like I'm moving that lever, but on each individual one, we should see them all go down. And they're being controlled individually by these switches. It takes a moment to get to a point, just like it took us to get to a point with the prop lever. You see them all coming back. 3 and 1 are leading the way because I hit them first as I was going through the thing. So that makes sense. And then when we get all back there, we'll put them all back in the full up position, and it should run them all the way back up. Basically making sure the individual controls are controlling those propellers. We want to see those lights come back on here in a moment. They reach their full potential. Bingo, right there. Beautiful. Put them back into neutral. And we'll go into engine 2 controller, and we're going to pull the control back again, and we're going to do basically the same thing. Making sure 2 is controlling like it's supposed to, and it is. Bring them all the way back up and make sure those lights come back on. We're going to put it back in 3. That is a good test. The propeller governor is working as it should. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring this up to 30 inches of manifold so we can test the auto feather. Because I believe the auto feather thing is not going to work if you're not at least 30 inches. Alright, so we're going to put on the auto feather switch. Testing 1, and we're going to push this in and go down there and look quickly. And no. This is what happened to me before. It did not work. Let me go up a little bit higher. I'm wondering if I'm at the wrong RPM settings. Let's go 35. Let's be surely beyond the takeoff range. No. Oh. Oh no, I turned the test off. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. Pull the propeller back. There it goes. You see it's feathering. Excellent. Why am I not hitting 2? Pull that back out of feather because it's not helpful for the engine. Make sure that went back. No, it did not. Pull the engine back, that's why. Alright, I'm gonna go back to 30 inches. I think it'll do it at 30. I was doing the test wrong. Because I'm a moron. There we go. Alright, make sure I got my hands on the right controls here. Okay. We have to reset. That's on. Pulling engine number 2 back. There we go. There it goes. We pull that back up and bring the engine back to its power setting. And we're back. Excellent. So the auto feather worked there. Again, reset the system. Test on number 3. Pulling the power back on number 3. There it goes. Auto feathering. Pull that back. Let's make sure that reset itself. Yep. And finally reset. Test on that one and pull back. There it goes. Bring that back. And reset the system. Alright, so the auto feathering is working. I'm going to bring the power now back to about 1,000 RPM. All right, there we go. And that's the test that I know to do, so that's where we're going to stop. Cylinder head temperatures are still in the safety zone, so that's good. You don't want to be doing that for too long because you're stand still with the engine power up pretty high. And C4 has dwindled down a little bit. Come on, 4, get back up there. Boost these up a little bit, get us up to close to 1,000 RPM. There we go. All right, we are now going to taxi. So I'm going to turn the landing lights on, just because I don't really have a taxi light. And we're all set. So here we go. Brakes off. And we start moving. Something there. Whenever you're taxiing, you need to give yourself some boost, but try and keep your RPMs out of that shake range, which is usually right a little bit below 1500 RPM. It's just a natural harmonic. The engines don't really like to live there. They vibrate a ton. It's not good. 'Tis not good. So usually what I'll do is I'll get me some breakaway, and then I'll bring the engines back toward 1,000, and it will have a little bit of power to move and coast, and all will be well. Alright, coming up to the runway, we're going to go nav lights to strobe. The landing lights are already on. The beacon's already on. Again, we're going to take off, and we are going to turn to the left. Here is our runway. For the takeoff, we put our cowl flaps in the takeoff position, and we're going to run up the engines to 30 inches. Make sure they stabilize there. And we're doing dry, so we're then going to set 53 on the manifold, and that is takeoff power, which is right about there. Stick, just let it kind of lift itself off there. Not a jetliner, we're not rotating really, we're going to let it kind of do its thing. And as it lifts us in the air, we're going to pull the power back to METO, which is 48 inches and 2600 RPM. And that will also go gear up. And we're going to start a gentle bank. Bring a notch of flaps in here to help us gain some speed. We're going to keep it at METO until we get completely cleaned up. This is not a fast climber initially. We're only doing about 500 feet a minute right now. That terrain, so we want to be mindful of that, make sure we get our turn in. they'll see the Albuquerque VOR here. So we can just kind of point our nose toward that. That'll get us a direct to the Albuquerque VOR. And we are picking up Sicaro because it's moving, so then when we get there, we can just steer toward there too. Very little notch flaps coming in. Trim out the airplane here. So we have quite a bit of back pitch in, trying to get that neutralized. Which is right about there. Alright, we're approaching 160. We can go flaps completely up. That's going to want to pitch us down, so compensating with the trim. We can now set climb power, which is going to be 40 on the manifold, 40 inches, and 2,400 RPM. That is cool. And we want to climb out around 165 knots or so. So lower the nose here so we can get that speed back. We're doing closing on that Albuquerque VOR. About 7.5 miles to go. And we can now set the climb cowl flaps to the 8 degrees. Kind of keep an eye on these cylinder head temperatures down here. Very important to watch those. Do not want to burn up your cylinder heads. Trimming out as we continue to climb here, trying to get us to hold right around 165. Trading a little bit of vertical speed for that. Remember, we started out very high altitude. Albuquerque's sitting at like 5,000 feet or some nonsense, so we this is a, you know, our performance is already kind of limited because we're in a high altitude. So it feels more sluggish here than it probably would elsewhere. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to this. We're going to hit the flight plan. And I'm going to go to the next waypoint. I'm going to hit direct, and activate that leg. So the Albuquerque leg is gone now. Now if I was to hit nav, it would try to intercept us and fly this. And I want to do that just as a setup, so it's ready. Just trying to make my life easier. So we're about 3 miles. I can see right here in the DME, we're about 3 miles from the Albuquerque VOR. And as we climb, we got to keep an eye on this manifold pressure and keep us at 40 inches. Because as we climb up, it's going to continue to drop. So we keep that at 40. We keep the BMAP right about 190. That's the expression of actual power the engines are outputting. There's 1.9. I'm going to start my turn towards Sicaro. Needle deflecting quite a bit, which means we're flying practically right over the station. Exactly what I want to see. And it looks like we passed the 10,000 feet, so we'll go ahead and turn the landing lights off and retract them. Cylinder head temps looking good. Look at that. We did a pretty good job. Alright, wings level. And with the wings level and we're pitched pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and activate the gyro pilot. I'm going to hit the clutch, and I'm going to switch it to a localizer, which is the nav mode, and it's going to track that GPS heading. But we did the work for it, so it's just going to do a little bit of correction to get us right on that path. And we're going to bump those engines up, maintain 40 inches. Again, watching those cylinder head temps, very important. You don't want to lose control of those guys. Everything's looking really good, though. Just fine-tune the engines individually. And then once that gyro pilot's on, you control your pitch with this little wheel here. There's wheels on both sides of the same thing. And so if I want to nose down a little bit, I just do a little notch. It's going to see my vertical speed drop a little bit. Just remember, I want to try and maintain that 165 all the way up to 15,000. Airplane is pressurizing, that's good. Look at the side of her. Such a beautiful bird. All right, 2,000 feet to go. Again, keep it on that VMET. You'll wonder why your airspeed keeps dropping out, and it's because you're not keeping up with your throttles as you climb. The air is getting thinner, so it requires more throttle to get the same amount of air into the cylinders and maintain that 40 inches of manifold pressure. When you get high enough and your throttles are firewalled and you can't maintain that anymore, that's when we call that the critical altitude. And we would go into high blower. That usually is going to happen somewhere around 16 to 18,000 feet, depending on atmospheric conditions. But we're only going to 15 today, so we really shouldn't hit the critical altitude. We'll stay in low blower the whole time. The blower is geared to the engine, and the way it is increased is by changing the gearing. It's a supercharger. If you know anything about cars, the difference between a supercharger and a turbocharger, the supercharger is physically connected to the engine via the crankshaft. And so anytime the engine turns, the supercharger is turning. So the higher RPM you go, the faster the supercharger goes. And basically forces air into the engine. A turbocharger does the same thing, but it's based off a turbine and the exhaust coming off the engine. So there's a little bit of lag. The advantage of a supercharger is there's no turbo lag. Now we're going into this cloud here, and you can see a little bit of icing starting to form in the window. So we're going to turn the icing switches on here. And I'm going to turn on some carb heat because I do not want to get in a situation where we suddenly have ice build up on the carburetor and block the airflow. See those carb heat stuff's going up a little bit. Looking at cylinder head temps are looking okay. And there's 15,000. Bad pilot is bad. Need to arrest the climb here. Oh, and something else I didn't do, I forgot, is turning on the pitot heater. Definitely want that on in icing conditions or we'll lose our speed. Alright, we're right at 15. Gonna try and kill the oscillation here. And there you go. So that's the altitude hold. It's not going to hold the altitude. We're just going to let the engines continue to run up here. That's the limit for my hardware. See that little jitter? And I'm going to keep the engine power up until we get around 200 or so on the gauge. And then we'll pull that back. There's a heater here too. Window scoops. One heater. Window scoops, heaters. Okay. Somewhere here there was a. Oh, here we go. Windshield heat. Yeah, there we go. See if that does that. Weren't in a cloud yesterday. Wasn't an issue. Now that we are at altitude, actually I'm gonna wait until we get to there, because when we set cruise power, we'll also change this to auto lean when we pull the power back a little bit. You don't want to do auto lean when your power is full in, because you're taking away again the fuel acts as a coolant in the cylinder heads, in addition to the source of combustion. And so when you lean out the mixture, there's less of that cool fuel coming in there, and reduces the cooling effect, and you can actually spike your cylinder head temps. So you want to be careful. What's our static air temp? We're right at 10. I'm gonna turn this up one more notch, I think is the deal there. I do think it's thinning here. A little, anyway. I don't see anything on the spinner, so that's good. Nice thing about having this guy is you have a ground speed, so if we go over here to this window, you can see we're doing 250 over the ground. Very respectful for the DC-6. We got 14 miles to go to Sakara. And then we'll be getting the truth of consequences. And I'm going to go ahead and close the cowl flaps down a little bit. We'll go all the way to 0 once we pull the power back, which I think we'll go ahead and do now. So we'll go ahead and we're going to bring the power back to about 35 on the manifold. And then we're going to go to auto lean on the engines and bring the prop back to about 160 Vmet. And that is our cruise power setting. And with that, I will now turn these guys to 0. Oh yeah, you see we're getting a little bit of ice on the radome there. During this transition, we want to be really hawkish with the cylinder head temps. Really watch those, because anytime you have like a big power transition or something, it can be really easy to get off there. So, also gonna mess with a few of the engines, just make sure the VMAP is right at 160. So they're all about the same. Be careful of that parallax effect. So we'll be looking right at them. Our power consistent. Alright, we're humming along. She is a handful, but that kind of makes it fun. Because you're constantly doing something. You're constantly monitoring the engines. You want to constantly watch those cylinder head temps, the carb temps, oil temps, fuel pressure, BMAP settings, making sure that you're getting the power you're supposed to have. We're a little underpowered. I think part of that's the carb stuff and some icing going on. So we're doing a little slower than normal, but not significantly so. It's fine. And we're now making the turn to truth or consequences. So we'll switch that guy right there, and we should see, there it is, the truth or consequences VOR popping up. So what we can do is we can set over here the 11270. And then we can put Newman in on the other one, because that'll be our next VOR, and that is 112.4 in the backup. And we can also put 112.4 right there. I doubt we'll pick up Newman yet. No. So there's truth or consequences. 64 miles. According to that, 64 miles according to the GPS. Perfect. Temps are looking good. Power's looking good. I think the wind is not in our favor for this flight. Yeah, with the same BMAP settings, we're all up on everything, right? Same settings and everything, we're getting a lot less speed. We're about 220, we're about 30 knots slow. And that could be wind. I think, according to the flight plan, 260.15, it would have been kind of horizontal to us, so that really shouldn't be it. I think it's the moisture going in and out of the clouds is killing our performance. But it happens. Is beautiful down there. That is for sure. All right, so we're en route the truth or consequences VOR. We should talk about how descent works in this aircraft, and it's a little different than your typical aircraft. You will not pull the power back to idle for descent. In fact, you'll leave the cruise power in, and will speed up on descent. And you'll also have to mess with cowl flaps because the engine will skyrocket in temperature when that happens. Because they're going to be spinning a lot faster. And they're spinning faster, and they're not getting any additional fuel to cool them. So you're gonna want to deal with that, and also put them back into ridge to give them some cooling as well. But beyond that, how do we plan our descent? Well, with the GPS, we can use that as our aid. And so what we want to do, you want to get to a level off point somewhere in your descent that you have a good 20 miles to slow down to about 174 knots or less, so you can start putting out drag. It's not going to slow down without leveling off. This is because you're leaving power in, you can't bring them back to idle. It's not good for the engines. You don't want to do that. So we need to plan our descent accordingly. So let's show you how we're going to do that. So over here, you can see we're up here heading toward truth and consequences. We've got a little ways to go. If we look at the weather at El Paso, currently 230 at 6, so we're still looking at landing on 22, which means if we do the runway 22, we can look right here. There's Newman. We're going to come there, and we're actually supposed to go to Piers. Well, that's going to take us past this approach, and there's no reason to do that. We can vector ourselves. So what if we want to turn from Newman and just go straight to Fispy, 9 miles out from the ILS? Well, at Fispy, we should be at 5,900 feet. So if we aim to be at 6,000 by Newman, then we should be good. But we don't want to be 6,000 at Newman. We want to be 6,000 about 20 miles prior to Newman so we can slow down. And so to do that, we've got to do some calculating backwards. So there's Newman right there. And as you can see, we click on this, it'll tell us this is a 2-mile segment. This is a 9-mile segment, so that's 11 miles at Wicker from Newman. And Molly is a 13-mile segment. So if we were to start slowing at Molly, we'd be good. We'd a little more than 20 miles, but that gives us some cushion, some buffer. So really we could say at Molly, we want to be at 6,000 feet and let us slow down all through there. Also want to take note of any terrain. See a 7,000 marking there. It drops off a little bit, so we should be okay. And we'll be able to see, I hope. Right now we can't really see, but hopefully we'll be able to see. So let's plan 6,000 at Molly. So how do we do that? There's two ways. The rudimentary rule of thumb, now you're used to in the jets, for every 1,000 feet you want to drop, you want to plan for 3 miles, so you take the number of feet in thousands you want to drop, multiply by 3, and then add 10, and that roughly gets you a good top of descent point. In this, because we're going to be descending at a much shallower rate and speeding up at the same time, the rule is 5. So instead of the rule of 3, we use 5. So whatever our descent we need to lose is, we multiply that by 5. So we're at 15,000 feet, we're descending to 6,000 feet, that's 9,000 feet of total altitude that needs to get lost. So 9 times 5 is 45. Okay? So 9 times 5 is 45. We already added the 20, so you could do that too and just do it as one calculation. But in this case, we're going to do 45 from Molly, or 65 from Newman. So let's look at Molly. We got to go back 45. So that's 15 to Freehan. We've got 18 there. So that is 33 at KJEV. So, and then we got 20. So from KJEV, we need to add, we're at 33, we need to add 12. So 12 miles from KJEV, however you want to pronounce that, is our top of descent. Okay? Now, the other way you can do it if you're using the GPS. And I'm just going to check my temperatures. Yeah, it's been good. And I think we've gotten some speed back too. Yeah, 240. We're pumping back up there, so nice. You can spin this in the nav chapter. Go to the last page. You have a vertical navigation section, and we can set a target. So we're going to do that. So push the cursor, and we're going to spin that a little bit. And we don't want to do more than the 1,000th place, so we're going to do that and move that to 6,000. Hit enter. Move the cursor over here, and the target we're going to target as Molly. So it works out nicely this way. If we weren't on a waypoint, we could actually set it to before or after, but because it works out, we're actually going to set it at Molly. So we're going to change this to 0 right there. So it's at thing. Actually, I wonder if I can just change this to, no, it's before or after. So before. So 0 before. And then we're going to go over to here, and we're going to change this to Molly. Enter right there. And then we can also hit the cursor there, put that back there, and go. And we can change this to tell it that our vertical profile should be 1,000 feet. Oops, I had it right the first time. There we go. And this tells us, as of right now, if we want to do a constant descent, to get to Molly at 6,000 feet, we would need to go down at -322. As this approaches -1,000, we'll get a message saying approaching a VNAV profile. This is an old message from before, so we're going to ignore that. I'm going to remove the cursor. And so now you have another reference. So there you go. Also, while we're in here, we can go and preload our approach. So we go to there. We're not going to do an arrival. That would be the star. We're just going to do an approach. So we'll say enter. And it's pulling up stuff for El Paso. You can see right there. And we're doing the ILS for 2-2. So we're going to select 2-2 right there. And we're going to do transition at vectors. That's fine. So we'll say enter. And I want to load it. I don't want to activate it yet. GPS guidance for monitoring only. Yes, that's fine. And we'll do that. And so now, if we scroll down here, you'll see after El Paso, here's our approach from Fispy. And isn't that perfect? Because Fispy is where we're going to start it in at. So we got vectors to the intermediate fix at Fispy. So when we activate the approach, we'll just go direct to Fispy, and our box will already be set up for us. All nice and handy-like. So that's what we're going to do. We'll go back to set course to it's about to change over a waypoint here. So we'll go clear. Go back to the main map page. We got 26 miles to Truth and Consequences. Speed is actually increasing. We're back to 247 now. Temperatures are holding. Everything's looking good. Love it. Watching those temps. Everything's in the green. Carb is right at 0, which is fine. Fuel flow is pretty close. Number 2 is down a little bit, which is interesting. It's fine. .250 now on the speed. Ground speed, that is. Beautiful. 5 minutes rather to Truth or Consequences. Scenery is quite lovely. Oh yeah. So I think. Well, it's not armed now. It's back to off. I don't know if it was armed. I'm trying to think if the reason I lost an engine to auto feather, because it was when I was pulling them back close to 60 BMEP, and it was number 1. I wonder if it just got a little too low compared to the others. But it looks like that disarmed itself, or I never armed it prior to taking it. Maybe I did that. That's very possible too. So I may have armed it and left it on, and you're not supposed to once you're beyond the critical phase of flight. For that very reason. So I'm going to leave it off. If we lose an engine, I'll reach up and feather it myself. I think that's a safer bet. We're now 24 miles from Dukas, and if you recall, it's 12 miles from Kharkiv, I think it was, whatever it is the descent point, so not quite in that range yet. So I keep hitting the wrong buttons. I'm used to 4 going down, and because my FMS essentially is up here. So yeah, Kharkiv is next, so we'll do this one, and then we've got a 20 miles to go. So we're getting close to top of the set. Our self-prescribed top of the set. And taking a look at our cylinder head temps. Again, can't stress enough how important it is to always be watching these. This will bite you in the butt. And if they get too high, you will lose an engine or multiple engines, and you will not recover them. Doomed to take that lightly. What is the... wind's dying down, 2303 knots now. A few clouds at 7,500. Temperature 10, visibility 10 miles. And altimeter 3008. Still arriving 2-2. see here we got a little bit of ice on the prop spinners. Nothing substantial. Just shows you we are in the presence of icing. Okay. I think we are getting close. Yep, 16 miles. We want to be 12 miles from KJev or KGev, or I don't want to say that. KGV. So in a second here, we're going to start descending. To do that, remember, we're going to keep our power setting the same. We are going to chase it back because the manifold pressure is going to try to increase as we descend. We are also going to open what do you call them? Cowl flaps back to the climb setting because they're going to heat up quite rapidly as we start to speed up, which will be fun. So there's 12.9. Okay. So what we're going to do is first of all, I'm going to set these to climb setting. Going to unlock and increase to mixture rich, and then I'm going to take this out of, and every once in a while when I do this I have to like do it twice. Nope, now it's just going to be stupid in general. Still do not have control. What do I have? I still don't have control of this. Why is it fighting me? Not in. Down. This happened to me the other day, and then it didn't happen to me on the flight last night. So I don't know what caused this. We're looking for about 1,000 down. If I get it set, then I'll re-engage the gyro pilot. There it goes. Synced it up to the oh, don't do that. Hang on, this thing's being stupid. I don't understand why. Fighting me. Oh, I know why. Because I'm a moron. I'm trying to do it with my trim wheel. I'm supposed to be doing this. Okay, but it is still fighting me. Hang on. That's not right. go. Okay. My gosh. See, that's sitting here thinking it's broken and I'm doing it wrong. That's what happens sometimes. Alright, well. We lost some distance there. Hopefully we'll be fine. Set this back to 24. Close to 160 on our BMAP. That's what we're doing. You'll have to tweak with this as you go, because as you speed up, it's going to want to shallow its descent. The airplane's going to want to fly. And I'm going to pull these back a little bit. I think before I wasn't changing the cowl flaps, and that was part of the issue. Or I mean, I wasn't increasing the mixture back to rich. So it should be better on the silver head temps now, so we can trap some more heat in there. Well, you can see if we look over here, yeah, see, it thinks to make Molly, we got to go 1,400 feet a minute now. So we're definitely behind the curve, which is not great, but I think we have enough buffer to work with, so. Because remember, Molly is more than 20 miles from Newman. So we have a little bit of built-in buffer. Looks like icing isn't really an issue anymore, so I'm going to turn off these guys. Left the clouds behind. Also going to turn off the carb heat. Up on 1,100 feet, rather. 11,000 feet. If I can talk. Solenoid temps are a little on the cool side. I'll go ahead and close them back to 0, see what that does. We're going to below 10,000 in a moment here, so I'm going to go ahead and extend the landing lights and turn them on. There's 10,000. We're doing 300 knots over the ground. That's to be expected in the descent. A nice little speed boost at the end of our trip. Coming up on Molly here in a little bit. Newman VOR, I think, just came in. Or actually, I think it's the El Paso VOR. Alright, there's 9,000 feet. We'll know how far off the profile we are when we make the turn at Molly. So we're about 2,500 feet high. We wanted to be at 6,000 at Molly. It's not too bad considering Molly's a little bit further away than we needed to be. We're close. Feet. Alright, as we're shallowing in the descent here, I'm going to go ahead and pull the engines back to about 90 BMEP. So that way it starts to slow us down a little bit, and then once we level off, it'll really slow us down. $1,000 to go, 7,000. Feet. $250. $100. Shallow descent. Stick in the altitude hold. It's going to be kind of close, but we should clear those. Alright, so we're holding 90 BMEP now. And our speed's going to slowly drop off, and we're looking for about 174 knots, and we can put flaps down. That'll help really slow us down. Now, what we can do is we can go beyond the Newman VOR if we need to. We're nice and close to that hill, aren't we? Temperature's starting to come back up. I'm going to transition us back toward takeoff cowl flaps here. Getting close to 174. 183 at the moment. It's going to be just about perfect. 5 miles from Watex, yeah. Perfect. There's 180. About 175. And definitely below 174 now. Alright, so here we go. We're going to do flaps coming out, a few notches to help slow us down. Flap 15 feels nice for now. And something else we can check here, well actually before we do that, we should look at our load. Currently, we're at 79,000 gross weight, roughly. So if we come up here to our chart, closest one, 80,000. Looking at a 131 V approach, 101 V ref. So that's 130 right there, 100 right there. Those are two numbers for full flap. 1 mile from Watex. Two and a half miles to Newman, and then we're going to activate the approach. So I'll wait till it gets down to about 0.5, well, not even quite 0.5, but 1 will do it. Just kind of watching our speed there, also watching our temps. Activate vector to final. No, I don't want Chrome. What is that guy? It's not going to fly me there, apparently. So what are we doing at waypoint? Oh, I see. Okay. To ourselves. I think this is our GPS-based ILS, I believe. 111.5, is that the localizer? Yeah, 111.5. That should hit us. Let's go another notch of flaps. There's the airport, I think. Looks funny. Is it the wrong one? I want to make sure I don't... we should actually be going pretty close into... Oh yeah, here we go. So let's go... that. That's approach mode. I'm just gonna see. I think that should track the localizer. And this should be our vertical path. Yeah, that's just something else out in the desert. I'm gonna take that guy off. I'm pretty sure I have to track that myself. I'll do a little bit of oomph here. Good, because I really can't see the runway yet. I think it's out there, so that might be it right there. So it's a good thing we got the ILS. Let's steepen our descent here a little bit. Are you fighting me again? Yes. Okay, it's fighting me. We're just going to turn it off. Why it insists on being stupid. Pull the power back here, because now we got a little fast. The BMAP in the gauges, so like 162 or so. Let's go more flaps. We're a little bit high on this approach now, which is not good. Gear out. We're kind of dive bombing this thing, which is not good, but it's fine. We'll live. Full flap. Gears down in green. Slowing from V approach toward V ref. We got a lot of runway, so I'm not really worried about slamming her down. Don't want to slam this one down anyway. There we go. Okay, idle. Reverser. So they are actually going backwards. They are. And we get that cut out. Positive again. And we're down. Go ahead and open our cowl flaps all the way up. $115, not bad. Bring the prop control all the way forward. And yeah, we'll take hotel right here. You have to do a little bit of a taxi back to get to the FBO. That's the terminal right ahead of us. Bring our flaps up. Welcome to El Paso. No DC-6s were harmed in the making of this flight. So again, you did see that time I cut this out and then I was trying to use the things and it still didn't work, and I don't understand why that is happening. Because I was in approach mode, it wouldn't let me re-engage the altitude hold to try and reset it. But I think that's what it takes to do it, to get it to reset. but not 100%. So if I really cared, I could have taken the whole system out and then put it back in, but at that point, we were so close, and it's just like, you know what? Kill the automation. We can see the runway. Just do it. Just do it ourselves. It's fine. Alright, we're going to taxi back on... Oh, this is Kilo. I want to go down here. I want to go down to Lima. Because that will become the runway. 2-6 left. And we don't want to do that. In fact, I might be able to get a marshaller over there. Let's see. Let's see. South parking. I know it's too small, but I don't care. No, I don't want to follow me. Follow that truck. That kind of reddish building right there, that's where we're going. That's the FBO. So aside from coming in hot and high, wasn't too bad. Again, I think there's still some quirks with the gyro pilot there in the altitude hold mode, but it's not insurmountable. Again, when in doubt, just fly the airplane. Should never be afraid to fly the airplane. Don't let the automation kick your butt. Automation's kind of a strong word in this airplane, but I think we want to go. Yeah, we can take this taxi. We'll follow the truck. Hear the brakes squeaking. I'm going to park in front of this and to the side here. I think we'll go in right here. I think. Yeah. I don't see my marshaller down there though. Oh, I know why. No, actually no, that has nothing to do with it. That's weird. I wonder where he is. Oh. Let me park right here. Sans marshaller. Let's see how it did. Hey, not too shabby for no marshaller. A little off the line, but it's pretty good if you ask me. That's pretty good. There's the FBO. Work that drone camera there. Alright, so we got to shut her down. We are going to go ahead and call for the ground power unit so we can utilize that. Go up top here, so we'll set the parking brake, turn off the cabin heater thingy, and let's go steady on the nav lights, Those are all on. That's done. That's fine. Okay. So let's go ahead and kill the props. So lock off. There we go. I think the engines are still okay. And we can put the gust lock on now. We can come up here, turn the beacon off. We'll go to ground power. We'll turn the generators off. We'll turn the mags off. We'll turn the inverters and engine instruments off. Seatbelt, no smoking could come off. We'll turn landing lights off. We'll turn our radios off and our GPS off. And pitot static goes off, and this guy needs to be off. Windshield heater. There we go. And we can open our windows to the outside world. Turn our transponder off. And open our doors. There we go. Here come the stairs. And that, at least, is how I fly the DC-6. Is it the right way to fly it? It's probably close. there's some things definitely I gotta still work on. But you know what? It gets me by, and it seems to work. And the engines don't blow up. And we got from Albuquerque to El Paso. So there you go. So I'm looking forward to this event on Saturday. If you're watching this video before Saturday the 4th? What is it? Yeah, 4th? Yeah. If you're watching it before the 4th, no, 3rd. Because Groundhog Day is the 2nd. Yeah. And that's Friday. It's the 3rd. If you're watching it before Saturday the 3rd of February, come check it out. It'll be a lot of fun. Over on Twitch, starting around 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be heading across the Gulf of Mexico in this very bird. It'll be a nice 4-hour tour, longer flight, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So come check it out. Come check me out on Twitch. Look at the other YouTube videos I got. Give this video a like and subscribe if you found it interesting and helpful and fun. Again, it's not supposed to be a tutorial. It's more just, hey, I'm going to fly this plane. You can watch. But if you learn something, all the better. We're always learning. I even learned something on this flight. So there you go. All right. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.